Guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I want to go through all of the form for my most popular and my favorite glute exercises. I feel like my favorite glute exercises are the ones that people never know how to do and I constantly get questions on. So let's just go through them together. The first one, and you guys know this is my favorite one, is hip thrusts. The amount of girls that I see doing hip thrusts wrong in the gym is like 95% of girls. I also just got a couple questions that I'd like to answer. They were asked on TikTok, and so I just want to answer them on here. So I'm gonna do them against my couch, which I guess just kind of works. I'm actually gonna do this without the mat. We don't really need a mat for it, do we? So first off, you want to line up. My favorite way to line up, you can do this against a couch, you can do this against a bench, you could do it against a box, like if you've seen the boxes at the gym. What else can you do it against? Literally anything that's like a decent height. Sometimes you have to like pull yourself up so it's on the right part of your back. But you'll get used to it and you'll figure out what works for you. So my first tip is lining up your feet. The best way to line up your feet is to touch your fingers to your heels while your back is on the bench or whatever you have it on. So just touch your heels. That's usually where you're gonna line up. They're about like hip width apart. Okay, when you're doing the movement, make sure that you're keeping most of the pressure onto your heels and the outsides of your foot. A lot of times you'll see me like lift up my toes because then it's just very focused on my heels. Helps it be glute focused. Okay, here's one tip that I've learned. So once I'm getting up, before I even push the bar up, because the bar is going to be down here, or your dumbbell or whatever it is, what I like to do is swivel my hips up. So you're like tightening your core before you even start, which helps you activate your glutes. So you're like, think of like thrusting. Think of like a dude thrusting. That's exactly what you need to do is like thrust forward so that your glutes are engaged. Might take you a little bit of time to get there, but that definitely helps me. Also keeping your ribs down and also keeping your head forward. I feel like a lot of girls when they are doing it, their head is kind of going everywhere with their body, or they're looking around the gym, or they're like looking around their house, they're thinking of everything else. What you need to do is you need to keep your head forward. Like pick a spot on the wall to look at. You could even look at the dumbbell that you're thrusting, anything like that. So first you're gonna line up, squeeze your butt in, make sure your ribs are in, looking forward. And one thing that I see a lot of girls do is they'll thrust and they'll thrust as high as they can into the ceiling. Like they're trying to get their hips all the way to the ceiling. And it's like, once you're doing that, first off, you're not using your glutes. Second, what are we doing? What are we doing? Stop doing that. Please quit thrusting so high. I actually had a girl on one of my last YouTube videos, no, TikTok videos. She messaged me and she said, or she commented and she said, why aren't you doing the full thrust when you go to the top? And like, it's just like squats. You don't need to thrust forward in order to activate glutes. Actually, in fact, you don't want to do that. So I'm going to do a hip thrust just so you guys can see it. So feel free to add weight. A lot of times I'll do it without weight, especially if I'm a beginner, just to get the form down. So squeezing your hips in, ribs in, you're looking forward, and you are going to thrust upwards. Ooh, these socks are slippy. Okay, yeah, I hope that helps you guys. I think a couple things that I can mention is if you are using a dumbbell, feel free to put something underneath the dumbbell so that it's not right on your hips. So whether that's a yoga mat, it could be a pillow. It could be literally anything, just so that you're not like bruising your hips, because it kind of does hurt. If you're using a barbell, make sure that you're putting like a hip thrust pad. We have hip thrust pads on the Lifted website. I think our black is actually sold out, but we have other colors. Yeah, make sure you're not wearing socks that are gonna slip, or doing it on like a carpet or something. Because if you find that like the couch is slipping or your feet are slipping, then it's no longer going to be glute focused, because you're going to be focused on keeping your legs in. Like even that, when I was doing it, like I would definitely have either the mat will probably slip though, or a rug, or I'd take the socks off, I just do it in bare feet, whatever. So if you guys have any questions about hip thrusts, let me know. But those are probably like my top tips and things that I really thought about when I was doing them. Another thing that I'm going to mention is the reason that I garden before the gym. And I'm going to mention this because I think it's helped me with my form a lot, because first of all, it clears my mind. So I'm not thinking about anything else. I'm only thinking about the movements that I'm doing. Then it also helps me to get that mind to muscle connection. Another thing that helps mind to muscle connection is doing like glute activation or something. Okay, we're gonna move on. We're gonna start doing RDLs. So let's get into it. RDLs, I'm gonna give you my top tips. So one of the first things, I'm just gonna move that I do is, and you'll see me do it in some of my videos if I left this in, is I like wiggle my feet to get the right spot. So I like to have them about hip width apart. Sometimes my feet are a little flicked out, but not really. Maybe just slightly flicked out. Then once again, we're going to swivel our hips inwards. That just really targets your glutes and like tenses your glutes. Then you're gonna swivel your ribs inwards. If you guys are trying to brace your core, this is the best way to brace your core, is just like think about swiveling in and also taking like a breath out when you do it. I wonder if I should talk about this in another video, is like the breathing when you're actually training. Sometimes my breathing is just so in a rhythm that I don't even realize that I'm doing it anymore, but it actually like makes a difference in your lifts. So anyway, swiveling our hips in and our ribs in. When you're going down, a lot of people think of it as like an up and down movement. So you're just going down and up, but I want you to almost think of it as a back and forth movement. You're pushing your hips back so much, it's almost like you're sitting, and then you're coming back up and you're using your glutes to come back up. I've heard people explain it like you're pushing a door closed and back up. One thing that I will say with RDLs is keeping the weight a little bit lighter for the first like little while, because the second that you start adding weight, first of all, your back can get involved. People have a lot of like lower back issues when they're doing RDLs. And then also your hamstrings can take over. And because we're really trying to focus on your glutes, you guys are here for a reason. You really want to be focused on your glutes. And I think that in order to focus there, in order for the rest of your leg to not take over and the rest of your body to not take over, you have to be like at a lighter weight or something that you can do comfortably. So I'm gonna actually tell you a couple of the mistakes that I see with RDLs, because I feel like I see a lot of mistakes in the gym, okay? And first, I'm gonna go off something that I saw recently, is when people are doing RDLs, first of all, their head is up. Please keep your fucking head down. I will forever say this because I see girls doing this all the time, where they're like trying to look at themselves in the mirror. And what you want to do instead is keep your head in line with your spine. So when I'm doing RDLs, I will find a spot in front of me that I'm able to watch the entire time. Honestly, a lot of times it's like right in front of me, like somewhere like here, and I'm looking down before I even start the movement. That way, I'm able to watch it the whole time coming down and then the whole time coming up. And if you're one of those girls that's like arching their back like this, and your head is up, your back is arched, you're probably like this. You're doing them so wrong, and you're probably targeting a lot of your hamstrings rather than our glutes. I really think that's the biggest one. I want you to remember that RDLs, you do have to bend your knees quite a bit because you're sending your hips back. You're thinking of it as like a hip hinge rather than like just an up and down thing. If you're going up and down, you're definitely working more your hamstrings than you are your glutes. So I'm going to show you guys how to do it. So first thing we're doing is bracing our core, finding that spot on the ground. Then you're gonna go down. I go about right under my knee. It's gonna be different for everyone. Really focused on our glutes. Okay, so one thing that I see all the time is just like hip thrusts. People are like thrusting forward as soon as they come up. So they'll come up, going down, coming up, and they're like thrusting. What are we doing? Why are we doing this? Don't thrust forward because you don't need to do that. Please stop doing that. First of all, it looks ridiculous. Second, it looks fucking ridiculous. And third, it literally looks ridiculous and it's not doing anything for your glutes. So when you're coming up, you have to think about the way that your glutes actually move. So in order for your glutes to stay tense, you're probably gonna come to around here. The tension's gonna be really like stretched out on your glutes. Then you're coming up. The second that you reach about here is where your glutes are like at a tense, squished together, like they are like working. The second you go like this, you're now engaging everything else but your glutes. Just doesn't work. So we talk a lot about keeping the tension on them. In order to keep the tension, you can't be thrusting forward because it takes the tension off of them because you're now putting the tension on everything else. So when you're coming up, you're almost stopping right about here, which your legs aren't even fully straight yet. And that's okay because that is how it's supposed to be. So yeah, should I do a couple more just so you can see? Okay. Okay, what do we have next? It's another thing that we do for glutes. Okay, let's do reverse lunges. So reverse lunges, I feel like I need to sit. I'm like the laziest fitness person you'll ever meet. Reverse lunges. So one thing when you're doing reverse lunges, keeping your core tight once again. Another thing when you're doing reverse lunges, leaning forward. So when you're doing it, you're gonna start here. You can also do static lunges, same thing. Not the same thing, but kind of the same thing. When I do my reverse lunges, I'll get the stance on my first foot. I'll almost like put all my pressure onto the foot that I'm working. And when I step back, I'm not stepping too far back. The second that you go really far back, it's going to be a lot of quads. And I feel like, especially for myself, it's just not as comfortable. Like, it's a harder lunge, but it's definitely working more my quads than it even is my glutes. So I don't step back that far. When I'm going down, leaning forward and I'm looking at something in front of me, kind of like down. So I'm looking at like the end of the couch. I'll have my weights here if I had weights. If not, I don't know, do whatever you want with your hands. And then as you're going down, sometimes I'll even have my hand on my glute. So you're thinking of this in order to make it glute focused again as like a hip hinge. So you're kind of leaning forward when you come down and then you're hinging at your hips to come back up. Once again, you really want to brace your core. So swivel in and swivel in. And then as you're coming down, you're thinking about going back a little bit with your hips and forward with your hips. Once again, we're not completely straightening our leg because we really wanted to keep the tension on our glutes. This would be a static lunge. And then reverse lunge is just when you step back. One thing that I do see a lot is girls, first of all, being really far back, and they'll literally go until their knee touches the ground. I also see girls like moving too fast. So I think the one thing when you're talking about form is actually being able to control your movement and realize what muscles you're working. So when you're trying to control, say, a squat or a lunge, like for you to be going this fast down and then coming up, and like it's like you're not really controlling it. You're also not really even using your muscles because you're like falling to the ground to pick yourself back up, if that makes sense. Yeah, so this is like so much to explain in one YouTube video. The reason that we do reverse lunges rather than like walking lunges or forward lunges and walking lunges work more of your quads because it's like a forward movement. Whereas when you're going backwards, you're able to like do that lean forward, push your hips back, that kind of thing. Yeah, I hope that helps. Okay, we're gonna do sumo squat. Sumo squats are great for your upper glute and like your outer glute. Because you're having to like push your knees outwards, but we'll talk about it. I just need to get a weight. When we're doing a sumo squat, we want our feet pretty wide. Do whatever you're comfortable with. I try to go with like just a little bit wider than shoulder width. Some people comment on my videos and they're like, it's not wide enough for sumo squat and it's not this and it's not that. And it's like, fuck off. No, but like honestly, do what you're comfortable with. Don't listen to everyone else. For me, this is what's comfortable. This is what works. This is what I've been doing for a while. So that's what I'm gonna do. What we wanna do is keep the weight in front of us like so. So it should be in front of us like this. This helps us to, oh my God, you guys, this is like a pattern. In order to target our glutes, we have to hip hinge. We have to hinge at our hips, aside from kickbacks, but kickbacks are kind of like that. But hinging at our hips and being like this, like pushing our butt back, this is how you target glutes. I think that people almost forget this, but it's like in order to get the most glute activation within your lifts, that's what you have to do. And so when you're doing sumo squats, you've got the wide stance, your feet are a little bit flicked out. Once again, keeping our back very straight, keeping our core tight. You don't want to get that butt wink that people get. If you've never seen a butt wink, look it up because I don't even think I can do it right now. But it's basically when your butt like curves, your like pelvis will flick inwards. Once you've seen it, you'll see other people doing it at the gym and you'll be like, oh, that's what I'm not supposed to do. You want to keep your back straight the whole movement. So I feel like a lot of people go too low in their sumo squats and then it deactivates their glutes because they're just using everything else. There's a lot of fitness influencers that I've actually seen recently that they're like trying to teach glute exercises and their quads are great, the rest of their body's great, but their glutes are lacking. And I'm like, you guys, you can't do that. Anyway, so not trying to talk shit. So keeping our feet quite wide, my feet are flicked out, making sure my core is braced. I'm gonna grab the weight like this, just like that, and pushing our hips back as we go down, keeping our knees outwards and using our glutes to bring us back up. Okay, so when you're at the gym, when you're working out, when you're working on your form, one of the things that I would say is just focus on like one thing at a time. So whether it's keeping your core braced, whether it's actually activating your glutes, whether it is maybe staying up in your lunges. Like, I think what we forget as beginners is it's not fucking easy. Like, you look at all these people that have been going to the gym for a couple years or 10 years or 15 years or whatever it is, and we start to compare ourselves. And I just want you guys to know that, like, the only person that you should be comparing to in the gym is yourself. So, like, you really need to focus on you. That's what I'm trying to say. Is like, think about what you did better this time than you weren't doing last time. So, whether you're in the gym, whether you're training at home, whether you're training outside on the beach, I don't care where you train. I'm sure nobody else cares where you train. But just realize, like, as a beginner, maybe you're not all beginners, but probably a lot of you are, especially if you're watching this video, is it's okay to not know what you're doing right away, and it's okay to actually sit there and work on your form. If anything, I think that as a fitness girly myself, I respect that. Like, I really, really respect the people that are sitting there and working on their form, working on their lunges, working on their hip thrusts, asking for help. Like, I appreciate that because I think that form is so important, and we all need good form in order to, get to the places that we're going to. So work on your form, take some time. If you guys have any questions at all about form or whatever, definitely comment on this video and I can see if I can answer it in another video. I try to help you guys out as much as I can. So yeah, but I hope all those tips helped you. If you guys want, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm going to make like a gym video because I need to show you guys kickbacks. I would love to show some barbell hip thrusts, even like variations of squats and different variations of lunges, that kind of thing. So yeah, if you guys don't want to miss that, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.